Okay, it's time for another recent reads. Look at me doing two back to back. Who am I? But that's because I have quite a few new releases that I wanted to talk about, and I couldn't wait because some disappointments and a new favorite. You'll just have to see. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Nakia. Welcome to my channel. So as I said in the intro, and I always start with I'll figure out another one eventually. We are here for another recent reads wrap up. I actually have 3 new releases to talk about and a Harry Potter book and a couple of children's books. So I was like, let me get up in here and discuss these things while it's still fresh, mostly. Either way, I got my notes. But coming your way, I have a 5-star read. My first one of the year, an early favorite. I cannot believe this. And I read it in January. I was like, what is this? I don't think this has ever happened to me any year. But it was also one of the books on my list for 2024 book releases that I was keeping an eye on. So anyway, we're going to get to that in a second. But before that, I'm going to start with DNFs and then work my way up to that 5-star read. This time, I have a DNF. So let's just get right to it. No need to keep you waiting. This book was on my winter TBR list. If you haven't seen that video, I will link it here and I will try to link it below as well. But I have been waiting for this book all of 2023 because it was supposed to come out earlier, and I think it was released in the UK and then got released in the US, where I am, late in the year. So anyway, I waited till December or January. Not sure when I started this. I think January. Either way, I finally got to it, and I'm speaking of The Second Stranger by Martin Griffin. Because it's first in this video, and I said I started with DNFs. That's right. This was a DNF. Now, in case you don't know, this is the book that is about a woman working at a hotel that is like in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. And a man shows up and says that he is a police officer and he was transporting a prisoner who escaped and that, he needs to keep her safe. Then a little later, another man shows up and says he is the police officer and the one that she already has there is the prisoner. So she has to figure out which one is telling the truth, which one is the prisoner, because, time is ticking and he's dangerous. So I was so intrigued by this story. We're in the cold mountains, snowy, isolated, and then the who is telling the truth. I love figuring out a mystery, but sadly, this was a letdown. I will say I did like the cold and snow atmosphere that the writer did. His writing painted that picture. I felt like I was, up there in the mountains, cozied up with a blanket, reading this book, not in her position. So I did like that. I did like the main character. Let me look at my notes. What's her name? Remy. I did like the main character, Remy, so that's a plus. Because, if I don't like the main character, that is another way I will DNF a book. But that was not the problem with this one. The problem with this one is I got bored. What else is new? To me, only the first 2 chapters held my interest and were good. There was just no tension, which by the synopsis, there should be a ton of tension. I should be on the edge of my seat, gripping, wondering what's going on. Not what happened. So when the first dude shows up and says he's the police officer, he tells her to take him all around and show him where all the exits are and is anyone else staying here. And so it was just chapter after chapter of walking around, checking rooms, a little bit of questioning each other, who are you, how long you been here, blah, blah, blah. But it was just too much walking around, nothing else happening. Then we also got some flashbacks of Remy, the main character, and her brother. It was showing us that her brother had some issues with drugs and whatnot, because they also start off in the first chapter, so this is not really a spoiler, telling us that her brother was in the prison and he was killed in the prison that's nearby this hotel or whatever. And so we're getting some backstory of how he went down the wrong path. I just didn't care. I was like, why are we taking a whole chapter to learn about your brother? I said, this is a pet peeve of mine, but if it's done right, it doesn't bother me. And for my 5-star book, it was done right. But hold your horses. When I got to about chapter 3, I just didn't care anymore. But I kept reading. Don't know why, but I kept reading. The writing also just felt a little bit awkward for me. I felt like the author had a thesaurus and was just looking up words to make things sound better. There was a part where he described melt water, and I was like, what the hell is melt water? Maybe those of you who live in colder, snowy climates have heard of this. I grew up in Maryland, Washington, D.C., so I'm familiar with growing up in snowy areas, but I have never heard the term melt water. I think when I looked it up, it just basically means ice that has melted. Just say that. It was just things like that that would trip me up as I was reading, and it was making me take longer. It just didn't flow for me. Maybe that's just me. And usually, or sometimes when I'm struggling to get through a book, I would check out the audiobook to see if that will help me. Didn't help in this case, which is unfortunate because I probably could have got through it if I liked the audiobook. And then this is the kicker. I got to page 57, and people will usually say, give a book about 50 pages. I did. And still no second stranger. That's the name of the book, The Second Stranger. We had no second stranger by 50 pages in. So needless to say, that's where I DNF'd it. I DNF'd at page 57, which was chapter 8. I tried, but I just was like, I'm not going to keep trying with this book. I have too many other books I want to get to. Like this year, I may try to sprinkle in backlist titles, but there's just so many new releases that I want to get to. And like I said, we don't have time to be wasting. So anyway, let's move on to my next book. That's not a DNF. One DNF, but I mean, I only have like 6 books to talk about. So one DNF, it's about right. So funny because I normally try to film earlier to catch sunlight, but it's a rainy day, so I knew we weren't getting any sun. So anyway, this is a dark, cozy, recent reads video. That's just what we're going to do. But let's move on to this next book. That is the second book in a series. The first book was one of my top books of 2022. So I was eagerly anticipating this book. And I talked about this in my winter TBR video as well. I said this was going to be one of my next reads. This one I did audiobook and physical book, but mainly audiobook. And you'll see why in a second. But I'm speaking of The Mystery Guest by Nita Prose. So as I said, this is book number 2 in the Molly the Maid series. Book number 1, I only did physically. This one was mostly audiobook, and I'll tell you why in a second. In this book, Molly is still working at the Regency Grand Hotel after all the shenanigans that went on in book 1. Basically, in book 1, a guest at the hotel died, and Molly was the last one in the room cleaning the room. So she was a suspect, and she was trying to figure out what happened to this guest. And there was just a lot more going on in that book than in this one. But anyway, in The Mystery Guest, there is this famous author who is staying at the hotel, and he's going to do a talk, speech, whatever, and give some big news that he has to say. And in the middle of him giving his talk, it wasn't even the middle, it was the beginning, he collapses and dies right there in front of all these people. And so it was basically, he was taking a sip of tea, and there is this maid who served him that tea. So she is the suspect, not Molly in this one. This other maid's name is Lily. So already I wasn't as interested in the main mystery because I like the fact that Molly was involved in the first one. This one, I get where they're trying to go. This one, she was more of a assistant to the detective trying to help solve this crime instead of like the stakes and tension of her being the one that's accused and having to clear her name. That wasn't really there. But we did get flashbacks of her and her gran, which I love the relationship with her and her grandmother that we got in the first book. So we got a little more of that going back to when Molly was a little girl. And actually, those were my favorite parts of the book. I loved being with Molly and her gran. Basically, what we were learning is that her gran worked for this famous author who is killed in the beginning of the book. Not a spoiler, but we don't know what the connection is to the present day, if it has anything to do with Molly, etc. But in the flashbacks, Molly and her gran are cleaning this author's home. His name is J.D. Grimthorpe, and his wife is Mrs. Grimthorpe. And his wife is one of those cranky old rich women that just tickled me. She was probably one of the more interesting things in this book. But as I said, seeing how Gran raised Molly and how Molly got to be the way she is was very fascinating. I probably could have just done a fiction book just with them two. But the mystery of this, So, as I said, it's basically the mystery of what happened to this author and who could be the one who did it. So the suspects we got along the way, didn't care about them either. When the actual killer was revealed, I still didn't care. I was like, I think it was pretty obvious who that person was, but it just didn't do anything for me. I would say this one was way more of a cozy mystery than the first one. The first one had, you know, as I like to say, thuggery. The first one involved like some drugs, and she was also dealing with this man that liked her in the hotel. And it was like, was he a good guy or not? We got none of that in this. She has a love interest. I won't say much more than that, but he was barely in this book. They talked on the phone a couple times or text each other from what I remember. And then that was about it. And then he shows up at the end of the book. So I was like, what was even the point of him? I guess to let us know she has a man, but okay. So yeah, as I said, I missed the edginess that we got from the first book that made it a little more fast paced. This one read way more slowly. As I said, way more cozy. If you like cozy mysteries and mysteries about authors and stuff like that, I think this will be perfect for you. For me, it was kind of boring. As I said, I ended up doing the whole thing through audiobook. That's the only way I got through it, because I was just basically listening to it in my car, which is why it took me a while to get through it. Because as I've said in many, many videos, I don't commute to work. I really just run errands close to home. So I listen to maybe like 20 minutes at a time of an audiobook. Sometimes I will listen to it when I'm getting dressed or something like that, but generally it's in the car. So anyway, all in all, after all was said and done, I ended up giving this book 2.5 stars. I'm going to round it down to 2 because it was just okay for me. With some of the stuff they set up at the end of this book, I'm curious if there is a book 3, if it's going to go in the direction that was hinted at. If so, I will be curious to read book 3. Either way, I'll probably check out book 3 because I'm just curious to see what she's going to do with it. But yeah, this was a letdown for me. Still nothing like the first one. Let's move on. Now, per usual, I have a couple of children's books, only 2 this time, and these are both perfect for the month of February. First up, I did pick up one book that had to do with Valentine's Day. I was just looking for books for winter, and I saw this and I was like, oh, okay, we'll check this out. I didn't read it on Valentine's Day because I don't care about Valentine's Day. It was a regular work day for me, but I did read it today, and this is Monday, President's Day, whatever. Don't care about that holiday either, but I have the day off, so I did read it today before filming, and this book would be Arthur's Valentine by Mark Brown. This is a crusty library copy I got. Like, when I picked this up, I was like, are you kidding me? But at the same time, I do enjoy that about the library because it lets me know this book was loved and borrowed by lots of children, adults like me. So anyway, I still wanted to read this book. And even funny, the pages are very crinkly. I don't know if you can see that. They're not crisp. They are used, but there's no marks on them and anything, so that's fine. But anyway, in this book, it's so funny because when I read the first page, I didn't know it was the first page. I thought it was one of those like intro type things before you get to the story. But this says, someone was sending Arthur Valentine's, and Valentine's Day wasn't until Friday. They were all signed your secret admirer. So I thought that was like the lead in. And then we go to the next page, and then that's when it starts. It was a real mystery. Who was Arthur's secret admirer? So that's basically what this book is about. As I said, Arthur's getting these notes, and it's from a secret admirer, and he has to try to figure out who that is. So, I mean, it was cute. I actually enjoyed the illustrations more in this one than some of the previous ones. I think because it takes place during Valentine. You know, we got a character here in their coat. So, you know, I even like the colors here, you know, more neutral tones. We have Arthur here in the classroom. And this just was so nostalgic for me. Them in the little coat area. Brought back memories from elementary school. You know, we got the mittens hanging here. And like everybody putting on their coats. Like I said, that just tickled me. The lunchbox. So yeah, this was Arthur here in bed. I will say, some of these animals, I don't particularly like to see them in clothes. It's a little disturbing. Like Arthur's mom, it's weird. And then some of these animals just aren't even cute to me. So this was very cute to read. The ending was funny, as typical with Arthur books. I think I asked before if anyone knows if that's like the humor for the Arthur cartoon, because I don't really remember. Maybe I need to try to find it and check it out so I can have a little more background when I read more of these books. But it was cute. I don't know that I would recommend it for kids because there was some bullying going on, kids teasing Arthur about his secret admirer. I know that was a thing in the 80s and, you know, 90s when I grew up, but I didn't particularly like that part of the book. I usually don't like when kids are being mean in these books unless that's part of the lesson, and that was not part of the lesson in this book. So other than that, it was cute. And then next up, I picked up a book that this reminds me of something. Well, it is from the time period that I was a child. I guess that's why. I could tell, I could feel it. But yes, this book is called Do Like Kyla by Angela Johnson. And then it says paintings by James E. Ransom. And you can tell that this art is paintings. It's art. Like, I loved the illustrations. But basically in this book, we have 2 sisters, Kyla and I don't know if we ever got the other little girl's name. I don't think we ever got her sister's name. It just says little sister. So we have 2 sisters, big sister Kyla and her little sister. And basically her little sister just loves her big sister, and everything her big sister does, she wants to do too. So she pretty much just repeats everything she says. And then those of us who have siblings, we know what that's like. Look, I just love even this first opening illustration with the purple boots. I just love these colors. Love what they did with that. But this one is perfect for winter. It takes place during winter in the snow. Look at the nature, the trees. Like I said, so cute. Hopefully you can see that good. Them two having breakfast. I'm trying to find an example. This is them with their parents. And it says here, Mama says lots of sunshine today. Kyla kisses the sunbeam on the dog's head. I do like Kyla. So like I said, she's pretty much just doing everything her sister does. And as I said, all of us who have siblings, we know what that's like. I remember a period when I was a kid where my brother would copy everything I was doing. I'd be like, would you stop copying me? It's annoying when you're a kid, but when you get older, you realize it's adorable and it's a form of flattery, as they say. You can see the snow here and they're in their winter coats. There was a good picture of snow. Oh, here we go. Yeah, look at this. The footprints in the snow. And I will say, I was waiting to see how it was going to end. And when I got to the last page, I was like, oh, this is so cute. I'm actually probably going to give a copy of this to my nephews. I think this is perfect for little kids, perfect for children who have siblings. I just think this is adorable. I will probably get a copy of this for myself, for my collection, because I just adored it. So now let's get back to some novels. We have a Harry Potter book. Finally. Okay, I'm gonna tell you now, I'm not gonna be holding this book up the whole time because this is the illustrated edition and it is heavy. I finally read book 5 of the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Yes, as I said, this is a big beast, over 400 pages. And as I understand it, I think the paperback is like 600. My Kindle edition was 400 and something. I think I may be wrong. This one may be 500 actually. This one is over 500 pages. I said 400. So yeah, let me see if I can show you any illustrations. As I said, this is heavy. So yeah, I always pick these up because I love the illustrations. Oh, Lord. Those of you who know about this, you should know who this is. Here's a little something. There are pages that are in black and sometimes those are hard to read. But anyway, we'll hold it here. It's gonna be good enough. So again, in this one, we go back to Hogwarts as we do every year. The actual side of the book says year 5, so that tells you what year he is in at Hogwarts. I don't know how much I can say that's not spoilers. I'm really trying not to do many spoilers, but I will say I am probably going to give mild spoilers because there are things that I have to discuss, and that for those of you who have read the book, I know a lot of you say it's so fun watching me experience these books for the first time, so I will talk about some things for you all. But again, mild spoilers. I will put a timestamp here so you will know, or somewhere on the screen I will put a timestamp so you will know where you can jump ahead to find out my final thoughts on this book. But this book had the best opening of all of them. I will say I never like when we're with the Dursleys. I'm always ready for him to get back to Hogwarts. Dudley drives me bonkers. But in this one, as I said, it really got into some action that involved the Dursleys. So I was all into it, like flipping pages. I was like, oh, this is how we start a book. Now, because I know that the series gets darker and darker as we go along, and because of the events that happened at the end of the last book, I was like, oh, I'm worried. I'm nervous. Every time something happened to a character, I just thought that was the end for them. It was their demise. Now, I liked the headquarters for the Order of the Phoenix, which is where we get the title of this book. Number 12, Grimmauld Place. I enjoyed that setting and being back with Sirius Black, Harry's godfather. He is a new favorite character, I will say. I already knew I liked him at the end of Prisoner of Azkaban because when Harry found out he was his godfather, I was like, oh, so special. I love it. And then he wasn't really in it in book 4, so I was happy. We got plenty of Sirius Black in this book. And then we also got a character that you will love to hate, that damn Umbridge. That woman, whew. I haven't seen the movie yet, so I can't wait to see who plays her and how they do it for the movie. But in this book, I was like, ooh, this woman, how she got her comeuppance. At the end, I was happy with because she deserved whatever she got. I did not like the detention with Harry. It was illustrated in this book. I'm not going to try to find it, but it was pretty gross because there were basically like blood drops on the pages. Nasty. It was nasty with the descriptions, and that woman is evil. Then we got a little bit of love interest. Harry and Cho have been mentioned in other books, but in this one, excuse me, we got a little date, a little kiss. I was like, what is going on, Harry? We're growing up. I did not know until I got to the end of the book that he's only supposed to be 13 in this book. So I feel like things move a little fast for these kids, but you know, they're intelligent, they're wizards. Maybe that's why, but to know they were only 13, still a little like, okay. Now, my favorite is still Hagrid. He is still my favorite character of all time. Second favorite, I've said, Professor McGonagall. Still love her. Loved her even more after this book because some of the ways she came at Professor Umbridge, I was like, oh, tell her. I can't say things about things that happen, but I will say I feared for these two characters and I didn't like it. The introduction of Grawp, however you say it, Hagrid's giant brother. At first I was like, still love you, Hagrid, but what you doing? And then when he came back later, I was like, oh, he's adorable. My daughter told me he's adorable in the movie. Can't wait to see how they did the CG for him in the movie, but in the book, he did end up being adorable by closer to the end. So, I mean, in this one, as I've already said, this is about the Order of the Phoenix, but it is also about, we're continuing with Harry and Voldemort being back in a physical form. And what does he want? What is he going to do? That's still always lingering in the book and always frightening. You know, that did bring some darkness to this book. And I will say we did suffer a loss and I did not like it. Clearly. I kept thinking they're going to come back. They're going to come back. It's so sad. I just feel so bad for Harry. Also because of what I had spoiled for me that happens. I don't know if it's the last book or whatever, but I do know there will be another great loss. And I just feel so bad for Harry because how much more does this boy have to take? That was difficult, but it wasn't as bad as I thought I was going to get in this one. I thought it was just going to be something super dark. I know things are coming. I've had two spoiled for me, but I thought one of those were going to happen in this one and it did not. So anyway, those of you who know, you know, but either way, I still was not happy with the loss that we had in this one either. And the last 100 pages were just, I was on the edge of my seat wanting to know what is going on. And then Dumbledore tells Harry he has to reveal some stuff to him. And when he tells him more things about him and his parents and things that Harry did not know about himself, I was like, oh, what is going on? I will say, with one of the things we found out, how did we not know that Neville and Harry have the same birthday? Because his birthday is mentioned in a couple of books, but not Neville's. And then as usual, we end up with the school year ending and Harry having to go back to the damn Dursleys. I am a little more optimistic about him going back to the Dursleys after things that we found out at the end of this book. But I was like, oh, yay, we're going to start the next one with the Dursleys. I already knew, though. I already knew. So I will say that this book is one of my top 3 of the series. I'm not sure where I'm going to rank it yet. Let me know in the comments down below if you want me to do a ranking when I'm done with the series. I only got 2 more books to go. But as of right now, it is in the top 3. As I said, best opening. I was really into it, but I will say it dragged a bit for me in the middle. I just felt like this book was a little bit too long. I mean, I know we got to spend time at Hogwarts and deal with Harry and friendships and Quidditch and all that stuff. You know, it was a lot of stuff with Umbridge, but it just started to drag a little bit for me. I even took a break from this book at one point and was like, I got to read something else. And then that's when I picked up this next book that I'm going to talk about. And I got all into that one. And then I came back to Harry Potter and finished it up like a day ago. But I'm still enjoying my Harry Potter books. It's always bittersweet because when I'm reading them, or at least this one, and I think book 4, I'll get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to read something else because they take me so long to get through. But then as soon as I'm done, I'm like, oh, I miss it. What am I going to do without my Harry Potter? Because I already know I'm not going to get to book 6 until December of this year. I decided that this year I'm not going to plan any books to read for the month of December besides book 6 because that one is like 600 pages. So it's going to take me all month to get through it. I am a slower reader. So I will just work on my end of the year content in December and be reading book 6. So you will have to stay tuned probably till January of 2025 to find out my thoughts on book 6, Half-Blood Prince. But I'm looking forward to it. After all is said and done, this one falls in line with the last 2 books I've read where I am giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I think I have not given any 5 stars. The first 2 I gave 4.5 stars and rounded them up to 5. So they're all great books, but my favorite is still Chamber of Secrets. And as I said, this is now in my top 3. So now let's move on to the best book I have read recently. A 5-star read. I'm wondering if you all can hear the rain. If so, got atmosphere. If not, disregard. But finally, it is time to talk about the best book of all of these books that I have read so far in 2024. Now, this one was one of the books I had my eye on as an anticipated release for 2024. I didn't get to put it in my most anticipated book releases video for 2024 because I think it came out like really early in January. And by the time I filmed, it was already out. So I didn't mention it. And it's funny because when I first read the opening sentences, I always read a sample before I decide if I want to read a book, if you're new here. And when I first read a little bit of it, I was like, oh, I don't know about this. I was like, this is a little more gritty than I think I'm ready for. You know, it was a lot of language in the very beginning. And so I was like, I don't know. So I think I was reading my Harry Potter. And as I said, I needed a break from that. And so I picked up the audiobook for this and I started listening to it and I just started getting into it. And I was like, we gonna go. This one is The Ascent by Adam Plantinga. And like I said, this one, whoo, hold on to your seats. Now, because I have never discussed this book on this channel, let me tell you a little bit about it. In this one, we are following a police officer named Kurt Argento, and he has just recently left the Detroit police department, whatever, Detroit PD. And alongside him, he has his dog named Hudson, and he has decided he wants to just head for the Pacific Coast and just take some time off and enjoy himself. Now, while on the road, he decides to stop in this small Missouri town and he goes to this local fair or something like that. But he decides to stop there, you know, just to chill, take in the sight. And while he is there, he sees this man approach this little girl and tell her that he's going to take her to her friends or something like that. And this little girl follows this man. And he knows, Kurt, our main character, that something ain't right. So he goes and follows them and sees this man attempting to sexually assault this child. Before you say anything, because if you're new here, I am big on trigger warnings with things happening to kids, animals, old people, plenty of things. So I had already read the trigger warnings for this book, and that was another reason why I was hesitant. But I will say, nothing happens on the page. It's very short. It's like he walks over, sees the man like touching his pants or something, and then that's it. He stops it. So nothing happens. Still disturbing. If you don't even want to read that, this ain't for you. Like I said, check the trigger warnings. Coming from me, I'm shocked to say this, but this is not for the faint of heart. Don't even know how I got through it. I do know. It was so good. But anyway, he stops this man from doing what he was about to do, and he pretty much like beats this man senseless, as he should. No, I don't condone violence, but. So what happened was he does not know who this man is. And I will just say he messed with the wrong person. But this man was doing something he had no business, but he ain't know who this man was. And by the connections that this man has, our main character, Kurt, ends up being put in a maximum security prison. So meanwhile, we also have this woman named Julie, who is the governor's daughter, and she is getting ready to take a tour of this same maximum security prison because she's in school for criminal justice and she's doing this for a class. So her father is not happy about this taking the tour business. So he says, you can go, but you're going to take 2 of my security men with you. And she's like, okay, fine. So she takes these 2 men with her. This all happens quickly, like first couple chapters. So then we get to the prison. We're with Kurt, and he also ends up getting beat up before he gets sent to the jail. So he's in the infirmary. All of a sudden, these 2 prisoners bust in, and he's being tended to by this nurse. Again, there's an attempted sexual assault. Not graphic, not really, like I said, very mild, still difficult. But Kurt ends up taking care of business again. And it's like, what are you 2 doing in here? And that's when we find out the security system in the prison has gone haywire. And basically, certain cells are being opened up throughout the prison. And you don't know which cells or which floor, because we learned that there are 6 floors in this prison and each floor houses different types of prisoners. So you have a floor that's just prisoners that will all be people who will be on Law and Order SVU. Sex offenders are on one floor. You have a floor that's all gang members. You have a floor that is all death row inmates. So, just talking about it again, I actually want to reread it right now, and that is rare. Now, once Kurt starts wandering around trying to figure out what's going on in his prison, we learn that there is a cell net over the prison because they're trying to keep inmates from using cells that they get in illegally. And the only way you can get cell service is to get to the roof because they need to get help so somebody can come figure out what's going on with this security system and take care of things with these inmates running amok. And then, of course, we also have Julie. So we do get 2 POVs. We're mainly with Kurt, but we do get chapters with Julie because she's also important and what's going on with her while she's on this tour and everything going to hell. So also we find out there is a computer that they come across and it tells them that the system is malfunctioning and it's just basically going to crash in like 2 hours and all of the cells are going to open. So then everybody in this prison will be let loose. So they have 2 hours to get to the roof so they can call for help and get the hell out of there. Now, what I got in this book is what I wanted in The Second Stranger. I mean, not fully, but you talking about an inmate. So yes, similar. This was so cinematic. It was not a dull moment. It was so intense, hard to read at times because this author, the way he was writing the violence and the physical things that were happening to these people, broken bones and lots of blood. And like I said, this is not for the faint of heart. I enjoyed it though. I think because I have grown up watching action movies as a kid, and I have watched many seasons of the show 60 Days In because I am always fascinated with the prison system. I don't like it, and I have learned so much from watching that show. So it just fascinates me, and this book was no different. Because we have inmates, there are a lot of things that were hard to read. I will say there was one part in particular in this book. It was just something that was mentioned that was supposed to be something that one of these prisoners did to a dog or dogs. And that bothered me for like a week, to the point where I was like, I don't know if I can read books like this, because something like this just really bothered me. I had to like not think about it. I kept thinking about it and didn't want to think about it. And now here I am a couple weeks later, and it's like, even talking about it now, it does nothing for me. For me, that's the difference between books and movies and TV shows, which is why I don't watch as many movies and TV shows, or I'm very careful about what I watch, because reading something, it can bother me in the moment or for a couple days after. Then after that, it's a fleeting memory. Like, books I say I loved, I'll go back and start rereading them. I'll be like, why is it that this is like a vague memory now? But seeing something is way more impactful, way more damaging. And so I try to be careful, like I said. As I said, check trigger warnings. But if you are open to anything, and I know a lot of you are, I highly recommend this book. So good. I was even surprised that there were some twists in this book, things that I did not see coming. There are so many characters besides the two that I just mentioned. We have the two officers that go with Julie to the prison. There's, those two. One of them is a character. I also highly recommend the audiobook. I mainly listened to the audiobook for Kurt's POVs. The woman who did Julie wasn't as crazy about. I preferred what I was doing in my head. But yeah, I mainly listened for Kurt and thoroughly enjoyed the narration by this man. I will put his name here on the screen because I can't remember it right now. But as I said, I was so invested, loved every minute of it. I even liked the ending. It set up that there could be a book too. And if there is, I will be here for it. I think this book was so well written because the author, Adam Plantinga, is an actual police officer. If you read his bio, he has spent 7 years as a police officer and is currently a police sergeant. So there you go. And this is one, I actually read the special thanks or whatever. I actually read that too, because he thanked all of these people that helped him to write this book, like people who are in the prison system, because he said he's not. He spoke to doctors about injuries and things, and if some of these things he wanted to write about were possible. And like I said, you can just tell it was just so much care and thought put into this book. As I said, for this to be his debut novel, he's written some other books, but those are nonfiction. For this to be his debut novel, I can't wait to see what else he's going to do. This reminded me of I Will Find You. I love these kind of books. If you have any other recommendations that are similar to do with the prison system or cops and people on the run, edge of your seat, nail biters, not too graphic with, like I said, sexual content. Oh, I will say there was also, it's prison, so there was an actual sexual assault with a man. That's all I'm gonna say. That was also not too graphic, but it was on the page. And I was like, oh, we're getting this. I will say, whenever I read it again, I'll just skim over that part and skip that other part with the dog, because I would know it's coming and just skip that part. But like I said, this was everything. I cannot see this book not making it into my top books of the year. I already call it. But anyway, as I already said in my intro and a few minutes ago, 5 stars. I love this book. I will have to get me a physical copy because, as I already said, I already want to reread it, but I have to move on to other things. And let's move on and wrap this up. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is 4:20. So pretty good time, but I got some other things to do. Like I said, today was my day off. So I would like to go enjoy the rest of my day and the rain that we have here in Southern California. It does rain here. Don't let people fool you. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this video and I cannot wait to hear your thoughts. So as usual, leave me some comments down below. I love to chit chat with you, and I will respond in some way or another, heart or something, each and every one of you. But let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on any of the books that I read, any of the books that I talked about. Let me know if you also read The Mystery Guest. Were you also disappointed, or did you love it? Some people did. It does have a lower rating on Goodreads than The Maid, but there will still be people that loved it, so I want to know. Let me know your thoughts on Order of the Phoenix. Spoiler free, of course, for people who are looking in the comments, but let me know what you thought, what you think, and let me know one of your new favorite reads of the year. If it was a new 2024 release or a backlist title, I'm still curious. And as always, ways you can support my channel will be linked below, as well as all of the books that I talked about, the illustrated edition of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix and the children's books. All of it will be linked below. And yeah, I think that's about enough. So that wraps it up. Oh, no. I always almost forget. Let's figure out an emoji for this video. I am going to go with some kind of rain emoji because it's a rainy day and you see it's darker for me. But yes, I love the rain. So leave me some kind of rain emoji, whatever tickles your boat, whatever you think of, tickles your boat or tickles your fancy, whatever. Yeah, so now that wraps it up for this video. So until next time, snuggle up in your hideaway with a good book like The Ascent. Unplug as much as possible. Be kind to all kind. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.